Welcome to Whole CEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in weight loss, mindset, and business. Learn our top tips to set you up for success so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, and feel unstoppable. Welcome to Whole CEO with Lisa G. I'm so excited. Today we're sitting down with Joey Drolshagen. He's spent decades traveling the country, helping people move past their fears and step into the career they love, creating a life of total freedom, taking the universal laws and revealed innovative real-life applications based on their principles with his infectious energy and magic. This man is how he proves his time and again about living your dream can be so easy and fun. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, Joey. Welcome to Whole CEO.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. And that was a beautiful intro. Excellent job on the last name.
Well, I was worried about that one. And
you did great.
It's a good last name. And I love your background. And let's jump right into the content for our audience. I know that you and I are aligned on this concept of the mindset. So let's dive into that first.
Absolutely. I mean, everything is mindset. You know, one of the things is our reality of our life is make-believe. The reality of our life is make-believe because our reality is based on our perceptions. So how we perceive something to be is how we perceive that reality to be. The really, really cool thing about that, Lisa, is if you don't like what you're experiencing, change your perception and you'll change your whole life. It's that easy. The hard part about it is nobody can change our perceptions but ourselves. We may not know how, but we have to choose that we don't like the way we're living and step up and understand how to change those perceptions. And life becomes so much easier, more fulfilling. I like to say that, you know, what I do is I help people live a bold life. They don't live by fear, doubt, worry, and all that. And they really experience the life that they want to experience.
I love that you bring up that perception is reality and that it's a choice. And we all have a choice to change our mindset and change our self-perception.
Yeah. Now, part of the thing with that, though, is people get caught in their perceptions, right? They're financially, what they're doing for work, things like that. You know, their health, you know, what you focus, you know, their health, their well-being. They get focused on dis-ease or disease. Right. And that becomes their reality, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And the thing with it is they don't know that there's another side, but they also don't know how to get to that other side. You know, they don't know how to open that up. I didn't for many years in my life, and I lived very unhealthy. I lived paycheck to paycheck with a lot of stress. I was at a point in my life when I thought if something came easy for me, it wasn't right. Unless there was struggle attached, it wasn't right. And it scared me. Well, and to understand that and then start making those shifts is really what I've spent the last 20 some years doing. And now for the last 8.5 years out helping other people do that in their life.
Well, I want to dive a little bit more into your story because I know so many of us over the last couple of years have been stuck. And I know of myself, I've felt stuck in my business, stuck in my personal life. Yes. So what was the turning point for you to figure it out from where you were living paycheck to paycheck and feeling stuck to being able to empower others and to empower yourself, really?
Yeah, and it really goes back, you know, when I was 22 years old, I heard a gentleman talk. His name is Jack Boland. You know, God rest in peace. He's no longer with us and stuff. But I don't remember what he said, but it just lit this fire inside of me to inspire, motivate, and lead people to live better lives. That happened at a time when I myself was struggling. And now I grew up in a blue-collar family in Detroit, Michigan, and I was taught that a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some years in retirement. Right. And I bought into that hook, line, and sinker up to a vice president in corporate America. But through that process, I always kept this other side alive, but I always had reasons because of the conditioning and my perceptions and things like that, why I couldn't stop one and start the other. even though I was so passionate about it. And about 8.5 years ago, my dad passed away.
Oh my
And
God.
my mom didn't want to be alive without him. So within a year, she passed away of natural causes, nothing really driving it and things like that, just heartbreak.
I'm
And
so
I found
sorry.
myself alone. And at that point, it's like, man, I'd rather not live than to live like this, living in this corporate America. I was good at what I did, but I didn't like it. I had this passion, and fear stopped me time and time and time again from stepping into this fully. So when my mom passed away and I found myself alone, it was only a matter of a month. And I was like, man, I don't want to live like this anymore. And from there led to being willing to take a step. And then that step led to, as you know, to another step, another step, another step. And within 6 months of there, I resigned from a 6-figure income, VP title, all of the
Wow.
benefits, perks, and everything with at least I had 3 clients I was working with at the time. I resigned from that, moved down to South Carolina. And I thought at that point, I was like, either I'm not going to make it doing it, or I am going to make it doing it, but I'm not staying here another day of my life.
I love
And
that. You had to hit rock bottom, keep going.
I did.
To step into living your passion, like what you really want to do. And it's so much more fulfilling having to walk through the fear. I want to talk a little bit with you about how to manage fear, because whenever we do change and change happens, it can be scary, right?
Sure. And again, for all those years, I could have walked away. I was a grown adult. I was living on my own. I had been married for 19 years and then divorced. I have a 25-year-old son now. So I had all that stuff. I didn't have to live by my parents' rules anymore, but it's that conditioning that we receive, and breaking that is so hard.
Right.
Ultimately, every bit of fear, whatever fear is, any bit of it, any amount of it, will come down to stepping outside of our comfort zone.
Right.
We get into patterns, paradigms, which are habits, our conditioning, and we just continue living through that. To break that means that we have to step outside of our comfort zone. And the bigger the step we take outside of our comfort zone, the more fear is going to be associated with that. When we start understanding that's all fear really is, so many people want to change their life, but the fear will stop them from taking an abnormal action. So when we continue to take normal actions, we continue to get the same results over and over again. We have to do something abnormal to get a change. And that's uncomfortable. But when we understand our fear is only us stepping outside of our comfort zone, and the greater the fear, the closer to that edge, that soaring edge that you are.
Wow.
So when I'm working with people and helping them, when we can start seeing it that way, then we can understand how to walk through that fear rather than that fear hold. There's so many people, this breaks my heart. There's so many people in this world that have huge desires that would impact millions of people's lives that never get acted upon because they're so afraid of failing, they never step into it.
I know. I mean, well, it's so wonderful that you help people walk through the fear and walk out of their comfort zones, because walking out of your comfort zone is not comfortable. It's so much easier to do the path that your parents raised you to, like get the job and do the 9 to 5 and raise the family, than it is to be like taking a step back and really listening to your soul and seeing what makes you happy.
Yes. But I'll tell you, I've never, and over time, my income has come back. Over time, I have more freedom of time than I've ever had. I can operate this business from anywhere in the world that I want to be for as long as I want to be there, So, I couldn't stand going to work on Mondays in corporate America, because it was always a day when the fun, the snowball starts and then goes through the week and gets bigger and bigger. So I take every Monday, even now, and I call it my fun day. I'll go hiking or motorcycle fishing, things like that. It's like honoring myself. And when we honor ourselves, when we do something, like I took a step, I'll tell you, it was probably the most scared I've ever been in my life when I resigned and I started that drive from Iowa to South Carolina, where I live now, and knowing I'm doing this, man. There were so many times where it was like, that was messed up. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And to make it worse, the company called me several times and said, you can work from there. You can do whatever you want to do, however you want to operate. We just don't want you to leave.
Oh,
So I had that pulling me
patient.
as well.
Them keeping you on the hook. They had you on the hook. They want to keep you on the hook. Well, I know you also talk about leadership, and it's such an important topic. I really love the topic of leadership from within. Can you step into that a little bit about
Absolutely.
how we can
Absolutely.
activate our leadership from within?
Yeah. So Lisa, one of the things, I didn't plan it to be this way, but I ended up getting tied in with corporations that were either in bankruptcy or coming up on bankruptcy and getting to that other side back into profitability. And one of the things I learned to do, I'll give you an example of this even, is I used to go to meetings. We had a meeting every day, a standing meeting at 7 a.m., 5 days a week, and everybody would come in there and pour out their problems, pour out their problems, pour out their problems. And I started going, listen, my leadership ability, my leadership within inside of me says to accentuate the positives, and the negatives will take care of themselves. So I started bringing that up in there. Like, why don't we go around and one person find a positive every day from your department? And I leaned into that, and even the president of the company would start calling me Mr. Over Optimistic. And that was my nickname. And so much of me wanted to just conform with everybody else, right? And play the role of being in that meeting. But it's not me. Like, I'm to thy own, like I marked it on my body, to thy own self be true.
I love that.
So, and that's leadership. Leadership isn't reading a book, taking a class, and then going out and mimicking that. Leadership is going within, saying, what's my truth? And how do I contribute to this? So what I started noticing after about 2 weeks of this, and everybody was calling me that, Mr. Over Optimistic and things like that. It was really ticking me off. But I go into the meeting, I go into my office afterwards, and I'm sitting there, and 3 people came in within an hour, one-on-one, closed the door so nobody would hear them. And they're going, what did you mean by that? The middle of the third week of doing this, somebody started to bring up a positive in there. And somebody brought up a positive in there. And somebody from another department goes, wait, explain, what did you do? And the guy told him, and he goes, oh my God, we've been having that problem for months. And now this guy sharing that positive not only helped his department, it helped somebody else.
I love that. So by sharing a win, you can help others rather than dwelling on the negativity, which is, there's no solution. I think it's so much better when you can find something to be grateful for and a win to encourage other people that they did something good on your team, and then somebody learned and benefited from that.
Yeah, and it works the same way with inside of ourselves, right? If I'm focused on everything that's not right, you and I were talking ahead of time about 2020 was a year of creating programs for me, but also a year of converting everything I used to do live prior to COVID to online. And that was a big thing. And I didn't really want to do that.
Yeah.
But to keep serving, it was required. So going through that, there's a lot of times in that process when it got really hard, when it got, and I would look at, well, I still got this. But as I start leaning, because I know what I know, I start leaning into, man, this went really well. Let's celebrate that. This went really well. And all of a sudden my team of 4 people would get into this point and we'd celebrate something. And then within a few days, something else would happen like that. It's like, we just get into that rolling. It's the same thing with inside of us. One of the first things I do when I work with somebody is I tell them, watch the words that you speak, watch how you talk about yourself, and then pay attention, notice the thoughts that you entertain, because that will become your experience of your life. So do you see how looking at successes can boost us up much quicker than trying to focus on all our failures and what we need to fix and where we're not enough and da.
And so we look at our successes, focus on the wins, lead with gratitude. Do you have any other final thoughts for our audience about how they can be unstoppable and go from stuck to unstoppable? Because you've learned to be resilient, even though you didn't want to, through COVID. How can you help us change our perception to change our reality?
That's beautiful. And I was just talking about, like, the other thing I would add to that is judgment. So many people, I'll say, live so much in judgment. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. When we take all that out of there, when we look at our life, when we look at the events, the situations, circumstances coming up in our life, I wrote a book on this called Life's Lessons, that's available on Amazon. But when we take the judgment out of the things happening in our life, and then we look at that life happens for us and not to us, all of a sudden, even the things that we would have deemed bad, we can learn and grow from those things. And that's what this last year has really been a lot about for me, again, with converting online, is I've tried a lot of things. I put a lot of money into a lot of places that ended up bombing. And I could have just said, you know what, I'm not doing any of this.
Failing forward. We all have.
Yes. Yep. And then the other thing I would say to anybody doing this, I tried doing this a lot of years by myself. And then I started getting into coaching. I started getting into programs. I started investing within myself. And what I realized is it's like climbing Everest. You can do it alone, but a guide will get you there a heck of a lot quicker. And you'll have a lot better experience through the process of it than going it alone. Well, because when we go it alone, though, we're coming from that same place of our patterns, our paradigms, and our conditioning. And for me, I don't always see those, how I'm living through those and how it makes sense. The normal decisions we make are coming through that conditioning. Somebody outside of us can help us to see that. And I'm sure you see that with your clients as well.
Absolutely. I think all coaches need coaches. And I think it's like we started this whole conversation about perspective. It's like if you're only having your own perspective, you're limited in what you can accomplish in life.
Yeah. I'm writing a book right now. I just grabbed a quote today. It said, the thing that, the enemy to true knowledge is not ignorance. It's somebody who thinks they know it all. That's the real enemy to knowledge.
I love that.
Isn't that awesome?
I love being open-minded, and it's so hard to deal with people when they're not open-minded. It's like, this is how it's always been done. This is the way it's done. You can't really coach people that aren't coachable.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's the thing I tell people, that beginner mindset. So many clients will come in and they'll want to tell you everything they know, and I'll listen. I'll go, that's great. That's great. But if that's what you focus on, you're not going to get anything more. Right. If you focus on what could I add to what I already know, is where you just spark that light bulb of ability.
Oh my gosh, so many golden nuggets in this one podcast to unpack. Do you want to summarize it all and tell people where they can find you?
Absolutely. So I'll just go. Yeah. So, we talked about aligning your mindset, right? The thinking, the thoughts that you entertain, aligning that mindset, getting into a place of looking at your successes, looking at your wins, celebrating those, and allowing the things that aren't working right to teach you a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block into what you're trying to create. That activating that leader within, you can understand the abilities and what the meanings of leadership is, but really going within and accessing that and then bringing that outward. That's what this flipping world needs so badly. And then learning to manage your fear, understanding what it is, understanding you're going to have fear, but you can kick it out of the driver's seat. You don't have to let that. It's not intended to control you. It's intended to strengthen you to go through that fear.
Joey, you are so awesome. Keep going. I know there was something else we talked about. We talked about the judgment.
Yeah, we talked about, and it all fits into the different areas. And then anybody that wants to reach out to me, Lisa, they can go to coachwithjoseph.com. Okay. And they can schedule a block of time to get on the phone one-on-one with me. And we talk about what's going on. Where would you love to be? And I give them some tools to start bridging that gap, to moving in that direction. And I love getting to help people. My mission of my life is to impact millions of people's lives with the works I do, the programs I develop, with all the free things I do, and the workshops and all that stuff. So I love doing what I do.
Well, thank you for being a guest on Whole CEO with Lisa G. I love your energy. It's infectious.
Thank you. And thanks a lot for having me. This was a great conversation, Lisa.